with deferred action on deportation. Is this a way of importing their new voters? Is the fix in? And someone needs to ask, how did a Republican House of Representatives and a Republican Senate let this pass? Did you know that under the current U.S. Code, illegal immigrants are allowed to vote in U.S. elections? Yes, thanks to Bill Clinton, who signed the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. The U.S. Code, as you can see right here, prohibits illegal immigrants from voting in federal elections, with certain exceptions. Those include states and municipalities that pass ordinances and amendments to their constitution that would allow illegal immigrants to vote in their elections. To me, this shouldn't even be allowed, and I kind of found out about this by watching a little bit of Tucker Carlson, but I had to actually dig deep to find the code and to actually read it. And then there's specific text that says subsection A, which says, illegal immigrants can't vote in federal elections. It says that it doesn't apply to an alien if the alien permanently resided in the United States prior to attaining.
So you get the idea. So everybody, once again, this is Max Bonilla, and he is outraged teen. Sorry about the late start, everybody, by the way, as well. He is the outraged teen, and he follows Gavin Newsom all over the place with a camera. So I call him sort of the Gavin Newsom auditor. So he follows him around and just puts him hard under pressure and asks him questions and holds him to account. And go ahead, Max. So tell us about some of your experiences with Gavin Newsom really quick, and then we'll get more into this Bill Clinton thing.
Yeah, so I'm not only a Gavin Newsom auditor, I'm an auditor of the state legislature. And more often than not, lately, I've been an auditor of Congress because that's equally as important to understand what's going on down in DC every single day. I actually have a program up on my computer that shows me day by day the schedule of Congress, and I'm able to watch their feed live, not on C-SPAN, just able to watch a live feed of what they're doing without any of the watermarks on it. And it's kind of cool. But as far as this whole Newsom thing goes, I've ran into him twice. I've run into him twice. I went to a rally once where he was, at an event where the new speaker was getting sworn in, the new speaker of the state house. And I waited for him outside for a few hours with this small little group of people. And we were all there to ask him questions about the gender affirming care, gender reassignment surgery, sanctuary state that California is, right? Because you're allowed to come in and get these surgeries. The doctors aren't penalized, So that's what the state really is all about. And then on top of that, there was another confrontation I had with him where he was coming out of the elevator. And I start asking him questions immediately about the illegal immigration that's happening across Hakumba. And since then, right, he said it was down 90%. This is what he told me to my face. He said that the border crossings in California are down 90%. But I've seen so many videos of illegal immigrants being able to get Ubers, illegal immigrants being able to get flights into the country thanks to the Biden administration. But not only that, but when it comes to Hukuma, they've actually come in with boats onto the California coast. There are videos of them coming on boats. There are videos of them hopping the border wall in Hukuma, California. There are videos of them going around the part of the border wall where there's just rocks, no wall, just rocks. And so there are videos of them doing that as well. And you know what? They're all lining up. And the 25,000 Chinese nationals that came across the border, I want to say the majority of them came across on the California part of the border. So,
That's right.
I think that should tell you everything right there, that let's say the border crossings are down 90%. I will say this, 90% of the border crossings are probably happening here in California.
Now they are. Yeah, that's right. And we know that California would lose about 11 congressional seats if the illegals were removed from the state. So we know that the Democrats have successfully used the U.S. Census to redistrict an entire state blue.
That is correct.
So
yeah.
That's pretty impressive, right? That they've been able to do that.
That's correct. Because as I explained in the Bill Clinton video with the so-called fix being in, you could have these permanent non-citizen residents in the United States. I don't know. See, that's what's interesting is I don't even know if they have to be like green carded or anything. It doesn't mention a green card. It just says a resident. It doesn't say permanent legal resident. It just says resident. So they could be an illegal resident, so to speak, of the United States.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it means.
Right. And then say that they want to vote. And somebody was telling me that was such a conspiratorial interpretation. But I think it's pretty clear cut. Is that if they meant green carded people, they would say permanent legal resident. It would say those three words specifically in the code. And I did not see those three letters there's three words in the code. So what I assume is they're trying to import these illegals, these immigrants, get them to say, I identify as a citizen, get them to be able to vote, and make it as if within a clear conscience, within a clear frame of mind, that they believe that they are citizens, to vote. And not only that, but to vote in these states where they're going to apportion more congressional seats just because they have the illegals, because this is what the Biden administration said. They said, hey, if you're a state, you better count the illegals as part of your US census, and
That's
you
right.
better apportion the congressional seats according to the total population, including illegal immigrants.
Well, he reversed our last president's executive order doing away with that practice. And one of his first acts as president was to do away with the executive order shelter in place. And he also helped fund a lot of nonprofits to go down to Central America who are inviting these people to illegally cross our border, which is actually treason under the Constitution. So I'm still trying to understand why that's happening. Give me a bunch of ones if you think it's treason to invite people up here with taxpayer dollars and you don't even know who they are. Give me a bunch of ones, guys.
It is. And you mentioned that the Trump administration tried to reverse course on this because of the 14th Amendment. Democrats and definitely Republicans as well were able to justify counting illegal immigrants as part of the US Census. Like, they were saying, hey, like, the 14th Amendment doesn't say it has to be citizens either. It doesn't say it has to be citizens only. But then you have the other side, which would then argue that, hey, it doesn't say that non-citizens have to be counted. So both sides kind of have an argument there. But really, over the years, they've said, hey, the 14th Amendment doesn't say anything about you have to exclude non-citizens. So let's include non-citizens. And the courts actually challenged what Trump did. And the unfortunate thing is, because the U.S. Census came up so fast and whatnot, I don't think that they were actually able to implement that during his time in office.
That's right. So you could have a district where there's 500 people. Let's say 500 illegals move in there.
Right.
So then what will happen is it will be redistricted and it will split into two districts called gerrymandering. And what will happen is you could have 499 illegals in District 1 with one legal voter. And that one legal U.S. voter gets to decide a whole new assemblyman, congressman right there on the spot based upon apportionment, based upon illegal. So they're basically using illegal aliens to redistrict everything and split the districts.
Yeah.
And they don't need to vote. But alarmingly and shockingly, what I'm hearing from you, Max, is that apparently Bill Clinton passed some kind of a vague or ambiguous, was it an executive order or was it a stat?
No. This is a piece of legislation that was actually putting language into the U.S. code that allows certain non-citizens to vote in U.S. elections. And my issue with that, right, is that now they can import these voters and keep blue states relevant, but just by using that, like they won't have blue states as being relevant when they're not able to import these illegal voters, get them to vote Democrat, or if they're not having congressional seats that are portioned according to those numbers. Because at the end of the day, there's a mass exodus from states like California and New York to Florida and Texas. And without these illegals, California and New York would be practically irrelevant. We'd have a Congress that has Republican majorities, every 2 years almost. I'd say without these illegals, we'd have Republican majorities in Congress. We'd have Republican presidencies. And it's okay. I mean, I'm not one to say that Republicans are all great and everything, but I'm just saying the reality is without those voters, you wouldn't be able to have really Democrats running the show.
So, Max, what I want to do is, it looks like we've several more people have joined us. I'd like to play your video one last time, starting from Q, so people can kind of see what you're talking about.
Sure. Under the current U.S. code, illegal immigrants are allowed to vote in U.S. elections. Yes, thanks to Bill Clinton, who signed the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act of 1996. The U.S. code, as you can see right here, prohibits illegal immigrants from voting in federal elections, with certain exceptions. Those include states and municipalities that pass ordinances and amendments to their constitution that would allow illegal immigrants to vote in their elections. To me, this shouldn't even be allowed. And I kind of found out about this by watching a little bit of Tucker Carlson, but I had to actually dig deep to find the code and to actually read it. And then there's specific text that says subsection A, which says, illegal immigrants can't vote in federal elections. It says that it doesn't apply to an alien if the alien permanently resided in the United States prior to attaining the age of 16 and the alien reasonably believed at the time of voting in violation of such subsection that he or she was a citizen of the United States. Remember, Barack Obama authorized DACA, which allows young dreamers that came to the United States to be able to stay in the United States with deferred action on deportation. Is this a way of importing their new voters? Is the fix in? And someone needs to ask, how did a Republican House of Representatives and a Republican Senate let this pass? Did you know that under the current U.S.
Wow. So there you go. I mean, that was pretty compelling. I actually saw the statute, and it's talking about if you reasonably believe that he was a citizen. So Max, can you imagine like how would an illegal reasonably believe that they were a citizen? I'm just
Well, think about how they're brainwashing these kids into thinking they're a different gender in school. They can easily brainwash these illegals into thinking that they're U.S. citizens.
That's interesting.
What I mean is, like, you got dreamers, right? Because this says specifically that they've been there since under age 16, right? So we're talking probably about dreamer age kids. So my point was, Barack Obama authorized DACA. Now they're giving a lot of these DACA recipients free healthcare.
Yeah.
And on top of that free healthcare, they may be able to convince these people that they are able to and should vote for the people that are offering them those free services. Democrats, right? And with Mike Johnson, of course, you're probably going to have a lot of Republicans making those same compromises. But my point is, they're going to want to vote for Democrats, and perhaps they may not know any better. They might not know how to become naturalized. They might not know what it means to be a U.S. citizen and are thus susceptible and vulnerable to that kind of brainwashing and programming.
Or could they just identify as being a citizen?
Yeah, or they could just identify. Yeah, or they could just get told by the right people, hey, just tell them you think you were a citizen, and we promise you won't get prosecuted. Nothing will happen. We live in a country where the whole justice system is run by Democrats. I mean, just look at, the Trump indictments. That's proof that the justice system is run by Democrats, because if it weren't run by such liberal judges, liberal justices, they'd be more focused on prosecuting the crimes that are happening in their city. And we're not talking about things that Trump has done or may have not done, but we're talking about people that are violent on the streets, people that are killing other people, people that are robbing stores, just people that are doing some of the things that they're getting let off for by these liberal DAs. I heard recently that George Gascon is letting, pedophiles off. I mean, this is how bad it's gotten in some of these cities. So really, they're focused on the wrong stuff. So most certainly, I'd say they could effectively make the promise to these illegals that they're not going to be prosecuted if they decide to vote, because they're not prosecuting people that are doing much worse things, like not victimless crimes, but crimes that have victims. And you could say that the victims, the American people in the elections, but I mean, what I mean by crimes that include victims is like, you're stealing from someone, you're harming them financially, you're harming them physically in some sort of direct way.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I hear a lot of people telling me this. A lot of my friends have fled California, and they're just really angry about the secret gender transitioning program instituted by Gavin Newsom, which to this day, the news media still says that you're a conspiracy theorist if you point out this known factual truth that public school teachers are secretly grooming children. They're not allowed to tell the parents any of this information because it could be deemed what was it called, dangerous or harmful, because it would be interfering with their coming out process. So they say it's violent. It's violent to tell the parents. Talk to us about that, Max.
No, that's true. And by the way, if you haven't gotten my YouTube yet, I talk about these issues. It's outraged teen. So outraged, the past tense of like outrage. So it's like being angry, outraged teen. And I talk about this issue all the time. It's that they want to hide the fact that the kids are being transitioned first socially, and then, of course, then biologically after that at the schools. and these people don't really care about your kids, and they want to say, well, if you're not allowing these kids to hide this at school, then you're dangerously outing them, which could lead to them committing suicide. It could lead to all these different things. It's like when they tell you at the doctor's office that when you bring your kid in, that they might commit suicide if you don't give them all the treatments and all the stuff. It's the same lie, but they're using a slightly different mechanism. They're using a slightly different thing. They're saying instead that they want to secretly transition these children in schools without your knowledge, without your consent. And these kids are vulnerable, but they're even more vulnerable when you're not around to see it happen.
Amen. That's absolutely true.
And they have these secrecy policies in California that they're enforcing without any laws on the books. There's no law. There's not a single law within the California state code that allows them to secretly transition your children. But here they are doing it and claiming that they have the authority to do that.
Right. They're claiming that it's violent because it interferes with the child coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, that's what they'll say. They'll say, if you want them to be outed, then you want them dead. It's the same thing.
Even though there's a much higher suicide rate for the people who get their body parts mutilated than, right, Max? There's a higher suicide rate for the ones who go through the endocrine system destruction with anabolic steroids, and then genital mutilation, having your body parts chopped off. There's a much higher suicide rate for those kids. And they say over 90% of them recover from the dysphoric phase when they come out of being teenagers. See, when I was growing up, I was into punk rock when I was a teenager. My parents hated that, but I grew out of it. But now what they want to do is chop off your body parts because they want to make sure that you feel comfortable identifying.
Yeah, there are studies that show that
right.
Once they get these procedures done, they're more likely to want to kill themselves afterwards. We're talking after the procedures, not before. And they can say they're happy. Anyone can lie. Anyone can lie by saying that they're happy once they've had these surgeries. But are they really happy? The statistics show that they're not. And somebody said, Dems own California, Republicans own Florida. Good luck. Somebody said parties still parties. That's funny. Yeah, that's true. That's why it's called a political party. There's a lot of parties. And trust me, I've been to some of these conventions. I mean, there are so many parties there. That's how you connect really in politics, is by going to all the parties. It's not as serious as one would think. I wish it were, but it's not as serious as one would think.
That's too bad. Well, Max, I want to give some more context to some of the stuff you do. I can't find the one where you're chasing them around outside. I think you're in Sacramento, but with the lawyer.
You can go to my So this is the one here. You can play this one where it's
Governor Newsom. The Jacumba area in the state of California is pouring in with migrants every single day. Do you believe that that's a national security threat to our country?
Down 90%.
90%.
Actually went down and visited. It's down 90%.
I saw that you visited, but are you doing anything? Is the Biden administration doing anything on the border?
Down 90%.
There's that Senate bill, but that Senate bill, it was all foreign aid. It was foreign aid to Ukraine. It was foreign aid to all these other countries. Governor, you don't care about the American people. Governor Newsom, have them pass HR 2. That's a much better bill, Governor. That has nothing to do with the border. Good, thank you. Governor Newsom, the Jacumba area.
That was so cool. I just love that video, man.
I still can't believe that girl tried to get in my way. It's like, what kind of business do you want with me? Somebody in the comments earlier said I looked handsome. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's probably why. Yeah.
So, Max, do you have a girlfriend right now?
No, I don't. No, okay. I don't. But I'm mission oriented, so my mission comes first.
I love
and
that.
It always will. And if somebody doesn't want to be a part of what I'm doing, that's not equally yoked to me.
That's a dangerous thing to say. Now every hot chick in town's gonna want you because that's what they want to hear. So you made your life. You got to start carrying around a bat to keep all the girls away because they're gonna be jumping all over you, dude.
Yeah, a bat. That's funny. Yeah. Seriously. Or I'm going to have to get some of these liberal DAs to try and prosecute them, but good luck to me, right?
Now, in full disclosure, guys, I want everybody to know. So I'm a civil libertarian, whereas Max is more, I think, of a Republican. But there's so many things that I agree with Max on. Like, for example,
I'm an economic libertarian. I'm a libertarian in different ways too.
I get you. Yeah, totally, brother. I get it. And see, the difference is, like, guys like him and I, we don't drop bombs on each other because we're more like our founding fathers. We understand the principles of détente, where we don't agree on everything. And that doesn't mean that we're racist or hateful. It just means that we don't agree on everything. Unlike the far left, where if you disagree with anything they have to say, you're automatically a white racist, homophobe, bigot, blah, blah, blah. They've already got a canned string of words for you. And we're not like that. So just so you guys understand, I think, for one, we should be able to have an open border. Where I disagree with what's going on here is I don't believe that people should get anything. I don't believe in the welfare system. I don't believe that people should be getting handouts. And so people wouldn't come here unless it was to work and contribute. That's the difference. So I'm not an anarchist, but I do believe that the government, by giving out handouts in exchange for votes, forgiving student debt for a garbage, worthless degree, because they wanted to help the administrators at the school who donate money to their political campaign. That's all got to end. That's why we're $75 trillion in debt. I believe that's how I believe. And then, Max, tell us a little bit about where we diverge in our beliefs from what I said.
Well, you said open border. I'm definitely for a secure border in some fashion. I think a barrier would be great. I think an entry exit sort of like, I don't want to say any sort of like digital system, because I'm not supportive of a digital system of any sort, because I don't want them having a footprint or a bigger ability to track US citizens. That's what I don't want them using the whole immigration issue for. But I do want a reasonable amount of like I do want a reasonable quota. Like, hey, if you're going to have this many people go to another country, then we have this many open spots for people to be able to come and be naturalized, but through the right application document.
A legal pathway where they
legal
have to take
pathway.
a test.
And the
so
legal,
they're not feeding off the
right.
administrative state.
And we would have, I would say the barrier would have a nice door in it so that people that were actually coming in the legal route to begin with could be admitted that way through the proper identification. But as far as people just trying to come right away, no, you're not welcome here. That's kind of more of my policy with that. Is like, let's have a quota. 5,000 people leave the U.S., then we have room for 5,000 more people. 10,000 people leave the U.S., then we have room for 10,000 more people.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like the idea, since we do have sort of a welfare state. I like the idea of having a border wall, because I know that the people that are coming up here right now aren't coming up here for work. They're immediately getting SNAP benefits. They get a free cell phone to come up here. When I was down in El Salvador, I saw the Antifa dudes down there with their clipboards recruiting them to come up here. They're looking for people who are communists. They're looking for vagrants, bums, people who are not going to contribute to this country. And they're bringing them up here because they know that those people are always going to be on welfare for the rest of their freaking lives. Even if they do get jobs, they're going to be subsidized heavily by the government in exchange for votes or redistricting. And I just personally think that that's unfair.
Yeah. And let me tell you, I think we should, and the government today, the US government admitted that Social Security wasn't going to be continued past 2035, which is interesting, right? Like, it's not financially feasible, right? And I think it is financially feasible, but you've got to make all the right moves. And I think those right moves include not passing any more foreign aid, not giving these handouts to illegals, cutting down on some of our government spending. Like, who cares about funding studies about the number of ants or the number of cockroaches or the number of mosquitoes, right? Let's take a census on humans, not bugs, please. So let's stop funding some of these wasteful studies that they're funding. Let's stop funding this invasion, I call it. Let's stop funding these foreign countries, this money laundry system that we've got going on, and let's focus on the American people. And if funding Social Security means foregoing all those things, and look, I think Social Security was a scam to begin with, because really I think that the government shouldn't really be managing that. I think it should be the people that should have their own little retirement funds, that they have their own personal thing. But if we're going to keep Social Security, we should be foregoing all the other things that are expensive to us.
Well, that's I mean,
that don't make sense.
It does, Max. And I'm really amazed at somebody your age is so intelligent, because most of the younger guys I've met your age just seem totally clueless. Like they don't know anything about the Constitution. They don't know anything about the Bill of Rights. And it's all, the default is always you're a bigot, white racist, homophobe, sexist. Like it's like all they know how to say. And it's just like, dude, like what are we going to do, dude? If these are the people who are our next politicians or judges, I just don't see any hope for this country when I see what's going on. Look the way they're treating Jews right now on these college campuses. I mean, dude, this is like I grew up, like they taught us about the Holocaust and stuff in schools, and nobody should be treated like that, dude. I don't care who you are, you know?
No, absolutely not. I don't think there should be a penalty for protesting, because I know the House is talking about dead naming these people and making them designated terrorists, you know, under the US law. I don't support that, but I also don't want them creating economic blockades where they're blocking people from going to class and they're blocking people from going to work. And I think there are already laws against that on the books, because they're already infringing on people's freedoms by like body blocking them and saying, look, you can't go to this place, you can't go to that place. When they're blocking the roads, that's already called traffic obstruction. That's against the law. So when these police and when these politicians weren't taking action across, you know, certain places in our country, Seattle, Washington, at certain places near these universities, or on the San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge, they were violating the law because they weren't enforcing that law.
That's right. That's right. So Max, just for the audience, so they know, there are reasonable time, place, and manner restrictions on when and how people can protest, and that's because other people in society have a right to use the roads and sidewalks too. And if you're burning cities down in your mostly peaceful leftist protests, that's unfair to the other people. And so typically you're not allowed to run around in the street and burn buildings down and say it's mostly peaceful and not get prosecuted, right? Right?
No,
Max?
I don't think so. I mean, there are already laws on the books against rioting. You're not allowed to break into people's places and steal their property. And like I said, there are laws against theft. And a lot of what was occurring during the BLM riots was theft, not protest. And theft is not a form of protest for people who are saying that, because again, it's violating the laws on the books already. And just again, so people can get an idea of where I talk about this stuff from, somebody posted the link. It's Outraged Teen on YouTube. It'd be great if you could go there and like some of the videos and subscribe.
His videos are dope. You guys are going to love this kid's videos, man. He is, I don't know how you're able to crank out that much content, dude, but
it's hard. It's hard. I tell you, there's a lot of reading. There's a lot of reading documents that would intimidate people typically. A lot of research. So it's kind of a combination of things. I like reading articles from all different sources to kind of get a grips of like, what are all the different viewpoints on the things, and then read the actual documents themselves, like read the record of the legislation, the actual vote. So like, I like to go to the government websites where all the information's posted. And then I also like to look at all the analyses of it, and then obviously create my own analysis and maybe incorporate some of these viewpoints, at least microdosing them if they seem reasonable.
Yeah. That's the thing too. Like when I do a video as a lawyer, you know, I want to make sure I have a foundation. So I'll take the time to do the research and try to do a slideshow if possible. And so I saw what you did with that Bill Clinton video, and that was really impressive, Max. And I really wanted to have you back on the show so you could sort of tell the audience, like, how the heck did you find that research and what drove you? It was just, you saw Tucker Carlson and you saw some little tidbit, and that's all. It just, that spark.
So I was watching a clip of Tucker where some attorney lady was talking about a law in the U.S. code that allowed non-citizens to vote. So I wanted to look it up. I said, all right, what is this code? So I look up the code, and it takes me to Title 18, and I think it was Chapter 600 and 611. I think it was. Title 18, Chapter 611, Sections 1, 2, and 3. I think were the main ones. So that chapter, that section, and that title of the law, basically, I went and looked into it, and I found that it was put into the law back in 1996. And so I was like, okay, well, who's president during 1996? The answer is kind of obvious. It's Bill Clinton. I said, what bill's language was this a part of? Well, as you guys know, immigration was a huge issue back in the 1990s. One thing that Bill Clinton said in his State of the Union was interesting. He did point out that the illegal alien, the flow of them was a big issue before that was even controversial to state, before society got to that point. And so I thought that was interesting that bill was supposed to help mitigate the adverse effects of mass, illegal immigration, illegal migration into the country. And they had included those provisions, which would carve out exceptions for allowing illegals to vote in certain state and local elections. But based on the way it was worded, it looked like they could also vote in federal elections. Correct me if I'm wrong, Michael. I don't know if I'm sure you read that code before, but there was the part that said section 1A is applicable unless, and section 1A specifically said you can't vote in presidential, vice presidential, and national elections if you're an illegal. But basically those two exemptions underneath that said that those were exemptions from section 1A, which was the voting in federal elections.
Right. So if there's a reasonable belief that you are a citizen,
they could vote for president. Yeah, that's what I was saying. And somebody was saying, well, it's all conspiratorial. They're allowed to vote in certain state and local elections, but it's not true that they're allowed to vote in federal elections. But I pointed out that based on the actual wording of the code, if they had interpreted it correctly, it specifically said that there were carve-outs for them to be able to even vote in federal elections.
Right. And we could do more research too, Max, which I do recommend we do on the the congressional hearings that led up to the passing of this legislation.
Right.
Now, that's not mandatory authority for courts, though. Courts can just say, well, if there was a rational basis for the law, and they'll just interpret it whatever way they want. They don't even care about what the legislative sessions were about. But at least we the people, for our audience, we could say definitively that, yeah, that's what it was all about. It was to carve out an exception to let illegal aliens vote and not go to jail. And we know that California just lets them in and gives them free everything as soon as they show up, because they want votes. It's a way for the single party state of California to consolidate and maintain power. The problem is everybody's fleeing the country because they put all these woke politicians in power, keep raising taxes. Even the actors are leaving now. They're traditional allies because of the millionaires tax and all this Marxist garbage where they raise your power bill higher. If you make more money than the guy who makes less, he gets a lower power bill. It's just right out of like a George Orwell novel. The success is being punished, race to the bottom. They want to eliminate the California state bar exam and do this pilot bar program because it's, apparently it's like racist or something to not have everybody get a bar card or something. I don't know, Max, it's just blowing my mind what's going on.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because one of the big logical fallacies is appeal to emotion. I don't know if I mentioned this one last time, but I like to remember that one because it's one that politicians use heavily on both sides. And with the Democrats that are in office now, it's having to do with importing the illegals because we need to have compassion upon them. That's what compassion is all about. It's about giving these people the free benefits, the free healthcare, the free food, the free shelter, because they may be fleeing all these other countries that are war torn. And so we need to be the ones that are providing a safe space for them. And if we're not, then we're cruel. And if we're saying borders closed, then that's racist. Just those kinds of things. I was kind of thinking about where we are today. That's how it is. They're convincing many people that that's what they need to believe, and they need to. And it's really a one big giant virtue signal.
That's all it is. Virtue signaling. Race to the bottom. Thank you, Chevy, by the way, for the family support super chat. I don't know if you know what that is, Max, but when people dig you, they'll send you like a super chat. That's like $10 right there. I guess I share that with YouTube, but I used his last couple super chats to buy Gutter his yellow belt because he just passed his yellow belt test in judo. And I was saying, hey man, my wife wants me to get out of here. She's pissed because we got to buy all this stuff and I'm not working, and so now the people are like, well, they're trying to help me, so I'll stay in the chat longer. Is that cool or what? I just love that, Max.
That is cool. So how does this super chat stuff work? How many subscribers do you need to start getting those?
And I don't even know. I was I was on and off of YouTube. I tried to stay in Patreon and like Rumble, but then my buddy Chili was like, no, dude, come on over to YouTube and I'll tell my audience about you and I need your help with some stuff. So we started doing stuff. And then one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I got a message from YouTube saying I'm eligible, so I did it. And then all of a sudden I noticed, what is that? Like somebody would say $10, and so I think it was BZ Watchdogs. No, dude, those are super chats. So okay, and I guess what that is it's a donation, almost like back in the old days when you had sponsors. Well, it's instead of advertising, I guess they pay me instead of having to watch a TV commercial. I don't know how it is, but it's really cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Oh, here's what it says. This guy says right here, 1,000, I guess 1,000 views or.
Oh, you know what? Probably subscribers, I think they made. But I think the monetization is now 500. So I think you can, once you hit 500, once I hit 500, I'm telling you guys, I'm close to 500. I'll be doing lives on YouTube on my own where I deep dive into California laws and, US laws and stuff like that. Because
I would love that.
I know guys that do that, and I break them down into small videos, but there's a lot more stuff. There's so much nuance to it. And I have so many links and websites and articles and PDFs that I can read about that stuff that's happening and get more analytical with it. And I know I can do it. So that's why I'm thinking once I hit 500, that's what I want to do. So if you could subscribe, that's great. Outrage Team.
Yeah. Outrage Teen, guys. You got to check this guy out. His videos are insane. Next time we need to put Outrage Teen instead of Max Bonilla on your thing there.
Yeah, we could put it right next to Max Bonilla. That's
in fact, keep talking to these guys. Look in the sidebar, just talk to them, and I'm going to do something.
Yeah, so it's interesting because one thing I like to point out too is we're talking about college education, I think, before, and how some of the student loans are going to pay for some of these anti-Semitic or whatever protesters, whatever they want to call them. I don't like using the words anti-Semitic or racist or any of that stuff because I know that can easily be misconstrued to make the person seem like they're a bad person. And I don't like to do that when they might not be, and they might just be protesting for justice. But it's interesting because back before they started offering loans to college students, the college tuition rates were a lot lower. I think they got higher once they realized that students could just get loans on demand, because then it's like, hey, now they can get loans on demand. The government will lend them $10,000. We could easily raise tuition because they can just pay for it. They can afford it because the loans are so easy to get. It's like it's like loans. Getting a student loan is probably just as easier than getting an abortion. So it's like, these kids can get loans. And so they started raising the tuition rate. It's kind of a no-brainer, right? Once people know that people have access to more money, they can charge more for what they're offering. They can charge more for the products. It's just like when the Fed is pouring more money into the economy, into the money supply, people are like, hey, there's more money to go around now, so I can just raise my prices a little bit. Hey, why not? That's what the colleges did exactly. There's something called the Higher Education Act of 1965, which was passed when Lyndon Johnson was president through the Great Society. I think I don't know, I may have seen a Brett Pike video about this. Maybe I haven't, but he talks about, I think, the Great Society impacting college, but it's the specific bill that I remember researching like a long time ago was the Higher Education Act of 1965, because that's when that's when the universities were able to get students that were receiving student aid, and so financial aid, so money from the federal government that was free, and on top of that, loans that were in like the 5 digits that were being made available to them like immediately. Yeah,
that's right. You see that, man. These schools, you walk onto them, it's like going to a mega church, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, you got tens of thousands of students paying $25,000, $30,000. I mean, sometimes up to 50,000, 70,000 sometimes for some of these big universities like Columbia, that they're paying like 75,000 a year, I think, for schools like that. It's crazy.
That's right. And the only place you can get a job with a degree in like African American studies is at a school, because there's no jobs that are looking for somebody with a degree like that. It's so those are the typical majors, like underwater basket weaving, human arts, whatever it might be. But these are not, these degrees are basically worthless, and these people are defaulting on their loans, and now they get the debt forgiveness in exchange for a vote. Isn't that kind of what's going on? A worthless degree, and they're not paying it, and gets forgiven.
Somebody said once people graduate from college, it kind of becomes like obsolete. I guess it becomes outdated. Becomes outdated. The moment someone's done, it's like forget about it. Now you got to look for something, and you might not have somebody that wants to hire you. If you got the connections, yeah. I mean, I'm not worried about it. I've got connections. But if you don't have connections,
I love it.
kinda screwed.
You make
Yeah.
your own way, Max. That's what you do. You be an entrepreneur. You develop systems within your network of trustworthy friends and family, and you be an entrepreneur. And that's how you become successful. The government is only caused problems, and more problems than solutions. Let's put it that way. And I think we can agree on that.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think we're all called to. We're by nature entrepreneurs. And that's
Yes,
something that the government wanted to get out of us, is the creativity that we had at a young age. As 5-year-olds, as 7-year-olds, as 4-year-olds, we're trying to figure out how to build stuff that we can sell.
that's right. And then you're also a student to Brett Pike, and you understand how Rockefeller brought the Prussian education system into the United States as a tool to dumb the American people down.
And in fact, way before Brett Pike, I didn't know of Brett Pike at the time, but I was in my high school sophomore year, and I brought up in my history class how Rockefeller actually established the Education Board in 1910 by pouring 1.3 billion of his own dollars into it. And I could kind of notice that my history teacher kind of started to get uncomfortable as I was bringing up those facts. It was weird.
That's wild.
Yeah,
I get
no,
it, though.
I'm not surprised though, because it's not in the textbook. Sorry. It's not in the textbook. Like if you're the guy that's like brainwashing everybody, why would you want to be known by everybody?
That's right. Well, I was just I'm very impressed with your knowledge and the way that you put it to use with your content creation. It's just unbelievable, dude. You're like the guy from A Beautiful Mind. I'll bet you when you walk in your room, you have all this stuff all over the walls and strings, right? You just
My room's a mess. Trust me. It's got papers. I have a dresser, and there are papers and documents just all over my dresser. It's just documents. It's just documents.
Well, I encourage you to study law. I do. I encourage you to study law. I think that you would be very, very powerful and much more effective if you had a law license. But give me a bunch of ones if you guys think that Max should try and become an attorney.
Give us some ones.
Give us some ones. And by the way, I don't know if you see, Max, I put you in the scroll there at the bottom so people can see your YouTube channel. It says @OutragedTeen.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So everybody, I want you to definitely add Max and check out his videos. Are so freaking good. They're so good. And then Max, I was going to ask you if you know anybody who can help me turn some of my live videos into shorts. I need somebody to help me do that because I'm too busy trying to run my practice to do everything. It's a lot easier to do lives.
I can help you do that. I know how. I know how that gets done. You can easily, like, if you go to your shorts on your phone, for example, there's a feature called clips where you can specifically take a minute out of your lives.
Well, okay, let's talk about it more, offline, but I definitely am interested because like this video, for example, I would love to do like 5 or 6 shorts of little excerpts of stuff that you've said, little nuggets from Max Bonilla. Man, I'm telling you, guys, I think that he's the one. I think that Max is going to be the next one. I think he's really got it together, and I think we should be supporting him. A young guy like this, fighting for your rights with the mindset of he has the wisdom of someone like us, and that is very rare for a young man in today's society. He's been able to swim his way through all the leviathanic garbage and all this left-wing crap that's being forced down the throats of these kids. And he's really a free thinker. And I want you guys all to give Max a bunch of ones for being a free thinker. Let's see it.
Somebody said, somebody said they don't tell you the truth about Albert Pike. That's funny because the moment that October 7th happened, you guys remember October 7th, Hamas, a creation of the state of Israel, attacked Israel. All right. Let's not sugarcoat this here. All right. I've read an MSNBC article that literally says Hamas is a creation of Israel. It's actual real documented stuff, but I digress. Somebody said something about Albert Pike. The funny thing is the first thing that I thought of when that happened was Albert Pike's 3 World Wars, the document that he wrote. This was back in the late 1800s. I think it was like back in the 1870s that he wrote about this. And he wrote about the first two world wars, and the first two world wars looked exactly as he had documented them way before they even happened. And then the third world war, he said it would be the atheistic nihilists against the Christians over a state called Israel. Is that funny? The
That's wild.
Christian
That's wild.
Zionists versus atheistic nihilists, aka some of these Palestinians that we see on these college campuses. Literally, everything that Albert Pike put in his 3 World Wars document was prophetic, which is why when I thought about that when I heard about October 7th, I immediately said I need to go read Albert Pike, and that's what I did. So you're right. Not a lot of people know about Albert Pike, but for about 3 years, I've known about the wondrous mind that Albert Pike is, and we can have debates about what he was a part of or what he wasn't a part of, but either way, he knew some stuff. Let's just
That's
put it that way.
impressive. That's impressive. I've only recently begun to learn about Albert Pike. I'm blown away that you know about Albert Pike. I clearly don't know half of the information that you do. I've heard that, like Snopes and other people say stuff, oh, everything's disinformation. I always find that when I look at their like research, their misinformation allegations, that it's all bullshit.
Yeah. Snopes. So actually, Snopes did make a comment about the 3 World Wars document.
I knew it.
And most fact checkers will say that it is conspiratorial, made up nonsense.
Right.
But I disagree. I mean, see, there are PDF documents of this everywhere, and I think it's well documented. I think it's historical. That Albert Pike actually wrote about the 3 World Wars. He talked about Germany. He talked about the USA. He talked about the bankers, the main provocateurs of the First World War. And by the way, I don't think the First World War was started because of the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, but that's another rabbit hole. You go down another day.
And I encourage you guys to watch Max's videos. Honestly, think what you want. He's done the research. Go ahead, Max.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, when I heard about October 7th, I remembered specifically Albert Pike's words that the Third World War would start because of a state of Israel. It would start because of a fight over the state of Israel. And he mentioned something about the nihilists taking the side of the Islamic jihadists, and the Zionist Christians taking the side of the state of Israel, and how both sides, Albert Pike literally said, both the jihadists that were that were on the front pages and the Zionists that were on the front pages fighting each other would both be controlled by the same source. He said that in his document.
That's wild. That is wild. Well, I'd like to know more about that, but I also want to get us a little bit back on track because I remembered that this is supposed to be about Bill Clinton and some legislation that he signed off on that made it possible for illegals to vote in this country as far back as, was it 96?
This was all the way back in 96. And just so you know, I have to go in 5 minutes because I've got a call in about 5 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, okay. You know what? We should probably close it out now. So guys, tonight we discussed some research that Max found that shows that if that Bill Clinton signed legislation, apparently, and we did read it, that says if an illegal alien, apparently who's 16 or under, has a good faith belief that they're an American citizen, that they get to go ahead and legally vote in the country and stay in the country legally with no problems. So, and apparently, is that a fair? Yeah.
So if somebody, right, that is fair. And so if somebody is looking 20 something years in the future, so if someone's looking 20 years in the future, they had a wonderful plan, right? We're talking, no, like 30 years. If somebody's looking 30 years in the future from a Bill Clinton presidency, they're looking at a guy that allows certain non-citizens to vote, to a guy that imports these non-citizens that are under the age of 16, DACA, dreamers, right? And then a guy that allows that invasion to happen even more, repeals a bunch of executive orders, and doesn't enforce any of the laws that Congress has on the books, goes against almost every single precedent when it comes to illegal immigration, and then basically imports all those voters that DACA and that this code were meant to bring in.
Oh, absolutely. Everybody knows what's going on if they're honest. I mean, come on, it's just about using the United States Census to change the electors, to change the electoral college. That's what this is all about.
Somebody said Bill Clinton changed the oath. I don't know if that happened. I'd like to. That'd be interesting to look into. But again, all this stuff that I said about Albert Pike, that's neither here nor there. All right, we're just going to accept that as we're just going to take that with a grain of salt for now. We're all going to look into this. We're not going to take anybody's word for it. But
That's
I'm
right.
saying those were my findings reading those documents. And when I did the research on Bill Clinton, my finding was that illegal immigrants could pop in a polling place and vote because they thought they were a citizen.
And that is just absolutely insane. And obviously, we don't want to be inviting people to sneak across our border at our own tax dollars expense and giving them free hotels. And we don't want Venezuelans who are from the Venezuelan prison system coming up here and having their way with our women. And we would like for Americans to pretend like America is their house and it's their home. And we don't invite criminals and vagrants into our homes. We deserve to know who these people are. I think that's more than fair. And I think that this crazy legislation that they passed to make it easy for them or give them a free pass when our parents never got that free pass is really unfair and insane. What do you think, Max?
Well, you're talking about the Venezuelans. And let me tell you this, you better not invade our houses or our women. Otherwise, sorry.
Amen, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So Max, again, I invite everybody to go check out Outrage Teed and Adam. And Max, I want to have you back on again, dude. I want to do it like a legal research thing with you where we do projects together about the law and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe even work on getting some legislation or proposed legislation ourselves. I have one right now I'm working on to try and get legislation passed to help the veterans at these West Coast military bases who are struggling with cancer from all the chemicals and garbage that they were fed, especially at Camp Pendleton. And I think we could do a lot of cool things to help the veterans community. You see how they're getting replaced by illegals. They're allowing illegals to get precedence at the Veterans Administration. At least that's what we're hearing. And that's really insane. I'm a disabled vet. I can't even get an appointment to have surgery or anything like for hernia. It's like a waiting list for everything. And it's just insane. And we need to be putting our own people first, Max. That's what I think. And I want everybody to support Max. Support his channel and get him to the subscribers that he needs so we can monetize him, so we can afford to spend this time, guys, so we can afford to spend this time to do these things for you, because you're not going to hear about this on Fox News. You're not going to hear about this stuff on CNN. They're not going to get any sponsors. BlackRock's not going to pay to advertise to hear stuff like this that's going to make you a free thinker. Think about it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
well,
Max,
I appreciate you for having me on. It's been tremendous, and we'll do this again at some point soon.
Yep. With that being said, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to save, because you never know when the thought police are going to take down this channel. Semper Fi, do or die.